I don't want to be that guy to say that I was right about a character being good or not before release, but I don't think I'm too far off. Almost every single, if not all, concerns that I listed about my Faruzan pre-release video became true, and that's before we knew any sort of depth in her kit. Before we continue, I just want to remind everyone to sub and like if they enjoyed. It would really mean a lot. Help me reach 2k subs soon. Thanks, I greatly appreciate it. As someone who has invested a lot of resin into Xiao and Skara, Faruzan seemed really good on paper, until you actually get to test it yourself. The reason why I say she's the most expensive 4-star all leads to one reason. Her 6th constellation. It fixes pretty much every single problem that she has with her base kit. The difference between C0 to C6 is stupidly big. It's like you're playing an entirely different character. Before we talk about these problems, let me continue to elaborate on why she's too expensive as a 4-star. As another niche support, her best role is to support Xiao and Skara, both of which are 5 stars and will need a lot of investment. And if you don't have either of these characters built, you have no reason to build her. But if you do have them built, Faruzan at C0 and C5 is not really going to be better, if not worse, than other options such as a sub DPS. She's not like Goro or Shinha, who even at C0, they are the best option for their teams. Faruzan needs more investments compared to them. She fits into Skara teams a lot easier since she isn't energy hungry, but for Xiao teams, it's much harder to manage. Personally, I ran either Sucrose or Kazuha in a Xiao team as a battery. Yes, I know running him with Kazu is weird. It's not optimal, but it's fun, okay? Energy problems weren't noticeable for me then. After I tried using Xiao with Faruzan, it became a lot more noticeable. Not only is Xiao energy hungry, but Faruzan is as well. At C0 to C5, it felt like it was a necessity to run a third animal character just to make sure I had enough energy. Oh, and if you're wondering, my Faruzan has 275 ER around there, and is at C5 using Elegy. I got ridiculously lucky with my wishes, and let me know if you want to see them if you're interested. Anyways, the biggest problem that Faruzan has with her base kit is how much her burst costs, because only God knows why it costs 80. The funny thing is that she's only capable of generating 2 particles by herself, which is ridiculously low, and after testing C1, her first shot after activating her skill is the only one that's consistently able to generate 2 particles, or unless you miss the first shot and the second one hits. If you manage to get the second shot to hit, it has a random set chance, I believe, to generate particles. It's just weird. As someone who has C4 as well, that constellation barely makes a difference only because it generates a max of 4 energy, and that's only like 5% of her entire burst. On top of this, she feels very clunky to use. You know how a lot of people complain about Sora feeling clunky without C2? Well, they clearly listened, and it did the exact same thing with Faruzan, except it doesn't get fixed by an early constellation this time, it's locked behind the last one. Which I don't get. You have to use Faruzan's charge shot after using her skill, and the skill isn't the one that generates the energy, it's the charge shot that does. What they could have done is make it so both her skill and the shot afterwards generate particles. Both of them. Just like how Ganyu's flower generate energy when it first hits an enemy and after explodes. Kind of. The last things are very minor inconveniences, but they are still kind of a problem. It's the uptime on her buffs and debuffs, as well as her crowd control. The uptime duration can be fixed with C2, but unfortunately, not everyone can be lucky enough to get that many copies of her. And while having a small amount of crowd control isn't really an issue for herself, it for sure as hell is both for Skara and Xiao. Both of these guys really excel when they do big damage while all the enemies are grouped up. What's crazy is that every single problem that I just mentioned gets fixed as soon as you get her to her stupid 6th constellation. Not only does it give an extra 40 crit damage to Animo users, but it fixes literally everything that I just mentioned from her base kit. The way it works is that whenever anyone under the effect of her burst does damage, it will activate the special charge shot and can be activated once every 3 seconds. There is a lot more to this than what the description tells you. Since the effect of her C6 and her skill are essentially the same thing, it will generate 2 particles every time it activates. This also internally helps out Faruzan as well while she is off field. Obviously, since you will have C4 activated at this point, and the effect of C6 activates as an elemental skill, her C4 will activate every time her C6 does. She gets free energy every 3 seconds while her burst is active. Not only does it directly help Faruzan, Xiao, Skara, or any other character's energy problems, it also indirectly helps with the clunkiness in her kit because you won't have to use her charge shot as much. The effect also comes with the same crowd control as her charge shot, so being able to activate this every 3 seconds helps out both Xiao and Skara a lot, in an AoE setting. The last thing I'm about to mention doesn't necessarily fix a problem in Faruzan's kit, it's more of an optional bonus. 4-piece Noblesse is her best in slot artifact set in my opinion. I don't think there is really any other option that will make me think otherwise until C6. That's when she gets a new best in slot artifact set, 4-piece Tenacity. Since the effect of C6 counts as an elemental skill, and will activate every 3 seconds, this allows Faruzan to consistently have 100% uptime on the 4-piece Tenacity effect. Since only a handful of characters can use Tenacity consistently, and a lot more possible Noblesse users, you're most likely going to have someone using Noblesse anyways. And keep in mind, having 2 characters with the same set will not stack. Even though she won't fully benefit from Tenacity, you could say the same thing about her using Noblesse, since it's not like she'll do a significant amount of damage with her burst anyways. That's why, in my opinion, I think only at C6, Tenacity is her best. With all of this added up, this is why I believe Faruzan is the most expensive 4-star to invest in. I don't think there has ever been a 4-star that needs her C6 as much as Faruzan does to become viable. Again, the difference between C0 and C6 is night and day. Faruzan is clunky, energy hungry, and inconsistent at C0, and at C6 becomes the best support for Xiao and Skara. I don't think I need to explain how expensive it can be to get C6 for a 4-star on average, since you're not even guaranteed to get the 4-star that you want. Fortunately, for me, I was lucky enough to get C5 in about 80 pulls, but I can only imagine it being very difficult for other people just to get even a single copy, right? Thanks for watching, everyone. Remember to sub and like if you enjoyed. It would really mean a lot if this channel could reach 2k subs soon. I'm planning to go for C6 Faruzan, so if you want to see it happen, feel free to check out my streams. I stream almost every night, so feel free to drop by. I've been extremely busy with school recently, but that will hopefully change in the next few days. Have a good night and day wherever you're at, and I'll see you all next time. Peace and take care.